Aloha and welcome to Wind in Her Hair. I'm Anna, your host, and today I have on my show an honored guest, my new buddy, Dr. Jonathan Ellerby. He is a spiritual wellness coach, consultant, author, you name it. He pretty much does it all. So, Jonathan, welcome.
Yeah, that's great. I like that kind of simple, short, let's just get to it, right? And I've been fortunate, I'll just say this by way of introduction. I've been fortunate to be on this journey of understanding transformation. I'm almost embarrassed to say this, but professionally for 30 years. I can't even believe I've done anything for 30 years. And I think that I've just always been curious, and whatever has been hard to understand or unclear has always attracted me. So I've worked in hospitals, I've worked in resorts, I've worked with, millionaires and billionaires, I've worked with inner city communities, from spiritual centers to more clinical, more psychology driven settings. And I've also done a lot of corporate and business consulting. But I think what unites it all is just this passion to understand how we grow and change, because it's possible. It's possible. You help people do it. And yet, let's be honest, it doesn't stick very often. And the world is still kind of a mess. So then why, right? Like, that's the ongoing question for me.
And why
And
is it
right
so
now,
hard? Yeah.
why is it so hard? I know. So we're fighting with biology and sociology and all these things. So yeah, I'm a junkie for this stuff. And right now, my passion is very much around men, couples, spirituality, healing, relationships, things like that. So I think that's enough. Let's dive in. All right. So here's one great way to understand where we are today and why so many things are kind of a mess. If your container perpetuates division and conflict, well, you can go to a great therapist, you can read a great book, you can agree to disagree or agree on things you want to change. But if you're in an environment that continues to perpetuate imbalance and power struggle, it's going to keep showing up. I believe I have to help them also take apart the system that fuels their division, that keeps each of them incomplete. In the end, what I think you want, what I want, is people to feel whole, integrated, empowered. So whatever fights that, whatever restricts that, has to be a part of the work. So what we really need to do is start building things together. I think that our models of relationships are so limited, really, and we're basing a lot of our couple dynamics on things that haven't even been around that long, right? Things that are like, I don't know, a generation or two old. So the way I look at it with couples is less, hey, this is what you should be, this is what an ideal relationship is. It's, how do we bring both of you together to co-create, look like uniquely for the two of you?
What jumps out at me, the main theme is ego. And in a lot of marriages, ego also, like my ex-marriage, it really boiled down to ego. And there's not a lot of room for collaboration or interdependency when the ego is too big. Because the ego is all about me. What do I want? What's going to make me look good? And that's all about
Right.
performance.
We live in a culture that celebrates individualism to the point where relationship suffers, schools suffer, workplaces suffer. It doesn't mean the individual isn't important. It just means we've lost the ability to think me and to think we and not just me. So to your point, absolutely. If there's an individualistic drive in a relationship, it's almost impossible for that relationship to thrive. So I'm going to give you two interesting illustrations, though, of how I work with couples. And the second one might surprise you, although I've told you a bit about this. So the first is that very often if I meet with two people, I do not do what a lot of therapists or workers do, which is they say, I want you to both go away and think about what you really want in this relationship. Why? Why do I do that? Why don't I do that? Because what that does is it brings two people together like opponents, like two people negotiating something that in which they almost have to fight for their own wishes or desires. So
Mm-hmm.
instead, where I start is what is it you have in common? What is the relationship you love? What is the relationship you're in this for? What is the we that you want to protect? The we that you want to protect has to be stronger than the me that's inside it. Now, if you can name what you love about this relationship and you want to preserve and protect and uplift, okay, then let's talk about your conditions. If this is going to
Mm-hmm.
be the we, then I'm going to need some of this. Okay. If this is going to be the we, I'm going to need some of this. Fair enough. But see, the difference
Mm-hmm.
is the context has to be we, not me, or it
Mm-hmm.
starts with the vision. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Here's the next thing. Not only do I think that men, and it's funny because I've obviously never been in a relationship like this, but I understand there are still
Mm-hmm.
millions, billions of relationships where men hold the power. I think men in this next changing stage need to not lower their rank or power to be equals. I think it's actually got to go further than that. I think in the context of this individualism, this male privilege that we live inside, I believe men really need to move to a place of service
Mm-hmm.
and uplift. It's not just how do we both get what we want. I really think there needs to be a deep understanding of what women have lived through. And, guys don't stop to think, really, shockingly, about what it might like to be, what it might be like to be a woman. Men don't stop to think how they would feel if they were treated the way they treat others. They can't even imagine
Mm-hmm.
what it means to be diminished or reduced to your looks or to your stage of life or to your capacity to, please or raise children. Men have not lived through that. And to undo that, I do believe relationships need a deep time of transition where the stories of women are heard and where men become, really protectors rather than aggressors.
Mm-hmm. I heard this quote once that said that a good man doesn't seek to be served. He seeks to serve. And this is so contrary to our culture these days. It's
Yeah.
literally the opposite. To find a man who wants to serve is unusual. And so to clarify that, some men might be thinking like, serve, what does that mean? It's not like you're getting on your knees washing her feet, but maybe it is. You're
Why
looking for
not?
opportunities to serve her. I knew this one family, and I won't go into detail, but the wife always cooked all the food. And this is in Hawaii. This is nowadays. She cooked all the food. She literally made her husband's plate. She served him. She cleaned up everything. And when we'd go to their house to visit, like I didn't really get to interact with her because she was always working. And I would sit at the counter and talk to her, but she was always busy and focused on literally serving her husband. She would bring him drinks, give him a beer if he ran out.
Good Lord.
And I'm like, this does not sit right with me.
I was just going to say, is she single now? Because
No, and surprisingly enough, she's still with him.
here's one of the ways that we've fallen down in our culture. Because the consciousness that we live in, we're calling it individualism instead of patriarchy. It's also materialism. Now, let's just quickly talk about why that matters in the male-female dynamic or this heterosexual sort of relationship we're talking about. Because I would say the deeper, more psychologically and spiritually mature man wants to know how he can serve his partner, his wife, spiritually and emotionally.
Mm-hmm.
And that's very different than, hey, babe, what do you need? I bought you this. I bought you
Mm-hmm.
that. I buy the house. I buy this. I look after that. That kind of providing, which men were groomed to do, ultimately is not really providing. And probably you and I both have worked with enough extremely successful people to see that it's not a cliche. It's
Mm-hmm.
nice to be financially secure. Believe me, I no fault in that. Um, but at a certain point, material security does not compensate for a lack of emotional safety. And I'll tell you, this was the hardest thing that I ever learned, even though I spent my whole life trying to understand these things. I know that I failed as a partner because even though I was asking on a daily basis, is there anything you need? Is there anything I can do for you? How can I support you? What I didn't realize is, and I would love to hear your thoughts because maybe I'm wrong, but what I didn't realize was that most women have also been conditioned to not even know how to answer that question.
Mm,
And so
yes.
the answers were often not about their
Mm-hmm.
emotional needs, not about what it takes for them to feel safe. And I'm going to warn you, if there's a man listening, if your partner tells you she's good or she's got everything she needs,
She's
don't
lying.
believe her. She's lying. She doesn't know. And
Mm-hmm.
your job is to find out, what does it take for her to feel emotionally safe? Emotionally safe.
Mm-hmm.
And it's
Mm-hmm.
not the same for everyone. And the
Mm-hmm.
reality is, it doesn't even make sense half the time because it doesn't need to. It's not math, it's not even science. Whatever she needs to feel safe, whether it's you never talk to your ex-wife again, or you work after 7:30, or whatever, to pay attention to what is the emotional need underneath, because that matters. And only when people feel deeply emotionally safe and held can they begin to truly blossom.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when we're going to see women co-create a much better world than what we have now. No?
I love that. Yes, I love that. I do want to dive into emotional safety because I talk a lot about this with my clients because they didn't realize that they missed the mark. They dropped the ball because they were providing material items, but they weren't providing emotional safety. But first, I want to back up because you were talking about a man asking his wife, or how can I serve you? Or do you need anything?
Yeah.
Emotionally abused women. And so I would say in my marriage, there was no physical abuse, but there was emotional abuse. There was neglect. And I didn't realize it. Being in it in the moment, you don't realize what's really happening until years later when you feel so small and so hollow and so neglected and so worthless. And you don't have a good idea in the world, and nothing you do is good or praised or encouraged or grateful of. And you just feel shitty, right? And also, if he never tells you you're beautiful, and I realize this, it doesn't matter how many times somebody says I'm beautiful, I don't know if I'll ever truly see
Mm,
it because
mm,
for 13 plus years, my ex never rarely told me that. And then also, they have a really hard time, emotionally abused women have a hard time asking for anything. And I thought about this in myself. I have a really hard time asking for help.
mhm.
And I learned with my ex, just it doesn't help to express emotions or feelings. That's unproductive and it makes you feel worse because
Mm, mm, mm.
they're not going to create that emotional safety for you. They're not going to create a nest. And I love this vision of a nest, of emotionally safe nest for you to express how you feel. You have to walk on eggshells. You have to filter what you say. It's not going to be received. It's going to be rebutted and defended. And so you just learn to keep your mouth shut, to not ask for help, to do everything yourself. And it's a very independent relationship. That's emotionally
Yes.
abusive. So that's why, men, if you ask her, if you need anything, let me know. No, that's such an
Right.
easy way
It's
out,
not
such a
enough.
cop out.
Not
You
enough.
might as well just say, "Hey, I really just wanna keep sitting on my ass. I don't really wanna help, but if you need something, let me know."
Yeah,
I might be persuaded.
absolutely.
What are your thoughts?
No, I think that's absolutely 100% correct. I think it is my experience that most, we can't say all, but most women have been conditioned either by childhood,
Mm.
by society, or by relationships, and sadly, very often by all three, to unconsciously know that men will not meet their needs. Therefore, when invited, don't bother.
Mhm.
Now, so that's very real. It is also real, though, that we are in a very difficult time of relationship transition in the world, because what I've also observed is that in those cases where the man is capable of being emotionally present and invites true emotional opening, then very often a lot more comes out than anyone expected. And all of a sudden, we enter into this new problem, which is neither of us have been prepared for the intensity of what's being activated. Right now, I don't know if you can quite pick up what if this makes sense. We are now transitioning from don't bother, don't say anything, don't feel anything, because like whoever, like my dad, like my ex, like my whatever, he's not going to get it. So I'm going to go independently and do my own thing or look after my own needs or have my girlfriends or whatever it is. But we aren't really preparing people for the next step either. And so we have this sort of slowly growing pocket of new relationships in which men are trying to be emotionally present. They don't have the tools to be that. And then what they discover and what women discover is they are sitting on a lifetime of pain.
Mhm.
And actually, I have this special men's group that I do. It's a short course. I just want to quickly tell you something about it because
Mhm.
it illustrates something
Mhm.
here. So I only work with about 5 men at a time because it has to be intimate. We're
Mhm.
practicing relationality. We're practicing all the skills they need in relationships, listening. There's homework between every session with their partners. It's got to
Mhm.
be making a difference right now. But one of the exercises, this is kind of a big thing. And if anyone's listening and you want to try it, you're welcome to, or message me for some tips because you got to do this carefully. But I invite them to work with their partner to create a safe time and place to sit down and for the man to ask his partner, will you tell me some of your stories and what it's been
Mm.
like for you to live as a woman? And
Mhm.
when have you felt shut down or hurt or not seen? Maybe in ways that I sometimes remind you that I don't even know. Would you tell me some of those stories? And this is a crazy experience for most couples. Men are instructed, there's some rules. It's mostly
Mhm.
just listening, no editing, no judging, no jumping
Mhm.
in. Oh, that happened to me too. Shut
Right.
the heck
Yeah.
up.
Mhm.
Um, and what starts to come up is that they both begin to witness, wow, there's so much pain in
Mhm.
this room that we've never named, we've never talked about. And eventually, if a couple can hold that over time, they will one day get to the place where he realizes
Mhm.
that he has stories too.
Mhm.
The research shows, I really like the work of Terry Real. He does a lot of compatible work to this, the way I talk about things. In fact, I'd say he's really the pioneer in this kind of work. Real, Real. He cites the research that shows that most men have been conditioned to censor and disconnect from emotions by the age of 5. That's crazy.
Wow. That
5.
is and sad.
So
So
sad. And then you
so
imagine
sad.
being a woman wanting an emotionally
Yeah.
present partner. I mean, this guy's friggin'
Right.
got no clue where to even
Mhm.
start. It on purpose. He's not really that. bad a human. He's just
Mm-mm.
really, really ill prepared, unformed, and that his way of being is okay because somewhere.
It's so true. And I want to touch on this part about how you said he's fooled himself into believing he's okay because my clients are very successful. They're high performing men who have done a very good job of providing and building these businesses and giving all the things to their partners. But then she ends up leaving. She's unhappy. And he's like, I don't understand. And they truly believe that what's working in their business should be working in their relationship, but it's complete opposite. And I talk
Right.
about this all the time on my social media. Men in business have to be emotionless in order to succeed. They have to
Yeah.
learn to compartmentalize. But when they get home, it's like they have to do a 180
Yeah. Yeah.
and take off their business strategy hat, emotionless hat, and put on their emotional safety hat. And it's like learning a whole new language. And
Yeah.
some men come to me, they're like, what is emotional safety?
This is a true story from this,
Hmm.
no, last week. I had a client, very, very successful, right? Top of his
Hmm.
profession. And actually, this is a very interesting story. What we were talking about is the fact that he was realizing this was a big moment. He was realizing that a part of the frustration and stress in his work is not just the stress of people not performing and things not going well, but the fact that he was beginning to become aware that he was actually grieving his home life. He
Hmm.
wanted to be around his young children more, but
Hmm.
he works 16-hour days and he gets to see his toddlers very, very little. Now, this was a big realization that
Hmm.
his stress was not just work, but it was the fact that he actually does miss being at home. So one of the things I shared with him as a simple thing to do was I said, well, does your wife know that? Like, do you ever just tell her, honey, I hope you know that even though I've got this great stuff and everyone thinks I'm top dog, I really do miss being home. I do wish I could be with the kids more. And that's hard for me.
Hmm.
He said, well, I could say that, but what would the purpose of that be? And I said, what do you mean? What would the purpose? He said, well, what is the outcome of sharing a feeling if she can't fix it or change it? Right. See your reaction?
Wow.
I'm
Hmm.
not even making this up. And I said, oh, well, the purpose of sharing a feeling is sharing a feeling. That's all. That's what
Hmm.
she's been asking you to do for years. It is its own purpose. It builds connection. There's vulnerability. It lets your wife know that she doesn't have to be perfect because you're not perfect. It's okay to be human. And you know what? I said, your load, your pain, your burden will be just a little bit lighter.
The
Come,
ultimate purpose is connection. It's
right,
connection emotionally.
right.
And for men, they don't realize that if they're not connecting emotionally with the woman, then the sex is not going to be that good. And men
Oh, or
want
not at
good
all.
sex.
Yeah.
And so they don't get that piece right. Like why, because there's no emotional connection. And so what I tell men is create emotional safety. You've got to learn to be a good listener. Like you said earlier, no jumping in and even like, yeah, same with me, listening and then validating, which doesn't mean always agreeing. It just means understanding why she could feel that way.
Yes. Well, now this is a topic I don't think we're going to go into, but for
Yeah.
those, it is interesting you mentioned sex because, once in a while there's guys that will just be blatant enough to express that's their priority. And so I thought you might find it funny or interesting when that comes up. Tends to be rare that men would be that honest. What I like to say is if you want the best sex of your life, then I'm going to help you understand that the ingredients to achieve that are the exact ingredients you need in every other moment of your relationship: presence, deep listening,
Hmm.
serving the other, absolute emotional presence all these things. That's what you need at the dinner table. That's what you need in the kitchen. That's go for a car ride. And then each serves and uplifts the other. And interestingly, let's go spiritually now. This is just how to be engaged with life. This is what it means to be a whole person, to feel the vibrancy of a stormy sky and a windy morning. This is what it means to really taste your coffee as if for the first time every day. This is really the roots of a good life. It's in the sensual presence of being mindful and connected.
Eyes full of curiosity. I love that phrase. And it does remind me of myself. That's how I describe myself. Someone with eyes full of wonder and curiosity, where you're just mesmerized by the trees blowing and the clouds and the sound of a bird song. It's magical. And a lot of people are going through life with their head down, focused on success and performance and earning and proving. And then life goes by, and before they know it, they're like, wait, what happened? What was the point of all this? I love how you said, tell me a story. I love that. It made me think of my ex-boyfriend after I was divorced. I had a 1 year long relationship, which was a taste of what a healthy love should be like, which I'm so thankful for, but because of geography, it didn't work out. But we connected on such a deep emotional level. We were able to talk about our fears and heavy stuff without any sort of defense or emotional dysregulation.
Yes.
And it just makes me think how sad a lot of people miss out on that. And it takes work. And like part of your book, it talks about, oh, there's so much, your book. We're not going to have time to go into it. But when you talk about finally having an awakening and changing and becoming aware of your spiritual need and becoming aware of healing, and so just made me think of how many people miss out on this because it's not their norm. Like you said, when men are 5, they are not able to feel emotionally safe, right? So they kind of shut down that part of their life. And then they wonder why they're constantly failing in relationships. And so whoever's listening, I think this is a wonderful idea for you to be able to look at your partner, your girlfriend, even your sister, your mom, and say, tell me a story about yourself. Do you know how much that would make them feel so loved and seen? Like my ex-husband would have never, ever asked me anything remotely close to that, even if I wanted to tell him a story.
Yeah. You know, I just want to quickly hit that practice one more time because you brought it up. So I call it the 1,001 men. And the topic and the idea is this: when the woman that's important to you responds to something you're doing that's encoded with male privilege or the fact that there's a male female power dynamic involved, remember you are not the first person that has done this to her, that has treated her like this, that has looked at her like that. You are the 1,001st. There have been 1,000 men before you that didn't listen to her story, that didn't value her opinion, that talked over her, that saw her only valuable for certain things. And sometimes that helps men to begin to realize, oh, because I only see life through my eyes, through my ego, through my experience. And when she reacts to me in a strong way, I think, what's wrong with her? Right? So if people are going to pick up your encouragement to start exploring stories, that's a powerful place to start anyway, which is, wow, when has this happened to you before? Can you tell me about that? And they'll say, well, how far back do you want to go? Elementary school? Anyway.
I love that so much. And I think it would spare a lot of men a lot of heartache if they went into relationships not taking her shit personally, right? I mean, he will unintentionally trigger her and maybe he will do stuff that hurts her, hopefully unintentionally. But for him to be able to go into that relationship saying, hey, she has some stuff that hasn't been healed. Everybody has some sort of core wounds, childhood wounds, and to go in there with just a open mindset of what is going on in her that really has nothing to do with me, but I can help be the catalyst to her healing by doing a couple of things. Number one, giving her a safe space to open up, which is so key. And number two, asking good questions like, hey, we're sitting in the car. We've got 5 minutes before our movie starts or whatever. Tell me a quick story. I want to hear a story, good or bad.
Yeah.
And so asking the good questions. And then number three, never judging her, but just listening. That would create so much emotional intimacy, which leads to good sexual intimacy, which leads to trust, which leads to emotional safety. Men, I don't think, realize the difference it makes when they can just ask a simple question like, hey, tell me a story about you.
Well, so then an interesting thing about the small group that I do with men is then we talk about what was that like for you to hear. Now, this leads to a new interesting thing, which is there's a lot of, wow, I never knew, I never considered, I didn't know, right? So then they start processing the experience of someone else. Empathy starts growing. But then there's this next cool step, which is, okay, it feels like we're wrapping up this realization of what lived experience of a woman might be. But before we move on to the next chapter, have any of you ever felt any of those things that she talked about? Oh, what? Powerlessness? Oh my God, yeah. Oh, wait, you mean like being treated like crap when you're a kid? Totally. And then what we start to see is all the hidden stories of men, which amazingly, they access by creating this space for the stories of their partners. And the reason why I'm telling you this is this all happens naturally. People don't need really sophisticated, complex systems and models. We are built to love and heal each other, but we do have to create the conscious space. And men are capable of just so much more than they have been invited to. And because this is something you and I have talked about, and that's where we not only go into the psychological work, but to me, that's where it starts to become spiritual, where we start to realize that there is a profound connection, not just between us and our partners, us and the people in a group we're with. Maybe there's a profound connection between all things. And maybe this generosity of self that I can offer to my partner, well, maybe I could offer it to everyone at work. Maybe in this world, instead of being the essentially the selfish kind of serial conqueror, I could be the liberator. I could be the servant.
The healer, the servant. I do want to say that it made me think of how it's not man's responsibility to heal her at all, but you could be a huge help. You could create an environment of healing for her
Yes.
just by being gracious and humble and listening and not being egotistical. So I love that. And I want to read this part of your book because I loved it so much when we were talking about eyes full of wonder and curiosity. You wrote here in chapter 16, life is precious. All life is precious. It's astonishing when we acknowledge the miracle of its diversity, tenacity, complexity, and beauty. Life is blissful and horrifying. There are those who waste it. There are those who destroy it and those who fight for their portion of it. And there are those who honor it, celebrate it, and share it. In this moment, existence itself is the one undeniable thing that all people and creatures, all forces of nature have in common. And I just love that because it just helps to open people's eyes. Like life is amazing and beautiful and wonderful and horrifying and scary and uncertain, but just to embrace it all and not try and fight it. And the more we become aligned spiritually with this higher power, whatever you want to call it, for me, it's God. I tap into his resources his divine wisdom, supernatural guidance and leading and prompting. And for so long, I did it all by myself,
Mhm.
thinking that I had the best ideas and I could do it. And it took me way too long. In fact, I just wrote a letter to my 17-year-old daughter this morning saying, I hope that you don't learn these lessons when you're 40s like I did. Like, I had no one to tell me these things. And
Yeah,
I'm telling you them now, and she's 17. I love
100%.
that.
Well, and the funny thing is, it's a very modern Western idea
Hmm.
that life is really all about achievement.
Hmm.
And it goes along with where we started. So, whether you want to call it patriarchy or individualism or materialism, or you can call it vertical consciousness, call it, but that is another piece of it. You just described it to me, is achievement at all cost. Now, I'm not saying I don't think it's wrong to aspire. I don't think it's wrong to try to achieve. Those are wonderful things. But to your point,
Hmm.
in balance with gratitude,
Hmm.
appreciation, being, because in the end, there's not much more to life than the experience of getting through it together. Like,
Hmm.
really, that is about all there is. You might as well make the most of that shared experience.
And speaking of success or attaining things or striving for having all the things, I was speaking with a client and I said, because he had it backwards, he wanted to provide all the things and then he had his hobbies and then they did family stuff and then he gave her his leftovers.
Oh,
And he saw it and he was heavy hearted. And I said, next time you get back into another relationship, she doesn't get your leftovers.
mm-hmm.
She would rather have your first fruits
Mm-hmm.
than the bag, than the car. Having all that stuff is nice, but that only lasts for so long. And after a while, it just wears you down and empties you out until you're like, okay, I'm done. I can't take it anymore. There's no emotional connection.
Yeah.
And we were made for emotional connection. So what I wrote here in my notes was, men, it's so important that you weigh it out and you realize, okay, I'm striving after all this stuff. And am I giving her my leftovers in the process? Because that's not sustainable. So give her your first fruits.
So let me expand on that because I think
Hmm.
that's very real and helpful. I will also say that what I observe in couples is that it ends up very often being mutual. That the women in the relationship, maybe it's to family, or nowadays maybe it's to their own career. There is a kind of way that this disease of self achievement, let's
Hmm.
think of it like that way, is spreading to everyone. So
Hmm.
now, not only is it exactly what you're talking about, that's been going on for decades, we're now starting to see the opposite as well, which is she's not particularly interested in welcoming him home with that special
Hmm.
dinner. She's not interested in giving him her patience. She's given everything to her kids or her
Hmm.
career or her volunteering. And so we have this, it's almost like a exponentially growing crisis where both members of the relationship are really saving. Wow, no, it's not even best for last. I don't know how you explained it, but like whatever they have left.
They're
But you know
leftovers.
what?
Yeah.
It's not how it works.
It's just
You,
crumbs.
yeah, it's got to start with that togetherness.
Hmm.
And it's hard though. It's hard for people because we have so much fear about what if I don't achieve or what if I don't look after my own needs. It's so strange to say it, but we have to be willing to take the risk to put each other and us first. It goes back to that
Hmm.
idea of the we before the me. There's
Hmm.
got to be a third thing that we love and protect. All we need to
Yeah.
say is if anyone listening wants a full life and a full heart experience of what it means to be alive, that's what we're talking about. And with whatever single factor you have identified, great, good for
Hmm.
you. It's my sense, though, that generally speaking, most of us long to be whole. And
Hmm.
you're right. You're right. Some people, for whatever reason, have material security or material success to such a degree that it can seem satisfying. I think it's unusual, though, that it's deeply satisfying.
I agree. This is kind of what we were talking about when people realize the life they built was built for approval. And again, this is the
Mm.
recurring theme with my clients instead of alignment. I've realized most of us don't get married for alignment. We don't even know what that is.
Mm.
We are marrying for the chemistry, for the polarity, for the sex, for the money.
Mhm.
Most of us. And I believe you've been married and divorced. I've been married and
Yes.
divorced. Most people I know have been divorced. We
Mhm.
don't know what we're doing the first time. We're marrying for all the wrong reasons. We don't even know ourselves fully. And we usually are so broken or so unhealed. We marry for the wrong reasons. And then it's like you have this crisis of belief in your book. You kind of talk about, again, the awakening where people realize we are spiritual beings having human experiences, not the
Mhm.
other way around. And so then we live life so much trying to look for love in all the wrong places and we come up empty and lacking. And we finally get to the point where we're like, okay, enough already. Something has to give. There has to be more to life than just this striving and proving and performing.
Mhm.
And so sadly, most people only change. I mean, change only comes through this, right? But most people only change when they hit rock bottom. That was my case.
Mhm.
And so the question is, what happens when people like especially men, they build this life built for approval instead of alignment? What happens to them?
Well, I think you've actually described it really well. So I don't even need to answer the question, but I'll expand on it because I think what you described is that, well, actually,
Hmm.
just to name drop, I wrote another book and it's called Inspiration Deficit Disorder. And the funny thing is, I wrote that before attention deficit disorder became a big fad.
Mm,
I should
okay.
really re release it. And the
Hmm.
idea is that an inspiration deficit, meaning a lack of alignment, a lack of authenticity,
Hmm.
ultimately becomes a disorder. Why?
Hmm.
Because our natural, inborn, God given, if you will, soul
Hmm.
is a source of eternal energy, eternal wisdom, eternal love. I really do believe that. And if we cease to look inward for that inexhaustible reservoir of life and love and light, then where do we go? Well, we go outside. And how do we get the energy we need? We get it by accomplishment, by achievement, by success, by control. And to the
Hmm.
point of your question, we climb and climb and acquire, and almost like an addiction, it's never enough.
Hmm.
It's never enough because you can't get enough of what you don't really need. Think about that.
Hmm.
You
So
can't
true.
get enough. So you can buy more companies, you can own more people, you can have a larger bank account. The amount of money that the world's wealthiest have now, it's a nonsensical amount of money. It's money that generations of their family won't even be able to spend. It makes no sense. But if you have no bottom, if you have no core, you will never stop.
And we don't realize how heavy that cost is emotionally, mentally, spiritually. And this leads me to maybe one or two questions left because we only have about maybe 10 minutes.
Yeah,
Okay.
squeeze it in. Let's
Okay.
do it.
You talk about the false self. What exactly is the false self, and how do people unknowingly create a false self?
So the false self, or what I sometimes call the persona, like a kind of, it's something that we begin to build as children. Because what happens is we show up as these beautiful, I don't know, again, I use spiritual language, other people listening may not, but you show up as this beautiful soul and you innately, naturally express yourself. If children are not self editing until they are. So little by little, they get cues from those they love. right? Now think about this. This is our greatest strength and weakness is connection. We want to stay connected. We want to stay in love. And what happens when we get that look from that parent? When we reach for the toy that they don't approve of, when we come home with the grade that they don't approve of, when we dress ourselves for the first time and they don't approve, or even worse, they get angry, or even worse, they're violent. So at young ages, we get very strong messages about how unsafe it is to be ourselves. And then innately, because we are built for connection and love, unconsciously, what do I need to do? Do I need to be smart? Do I need to be beautiful? Do I need to be the quickest? Do I need to be the funniest? We acquire coping skills. We have social conditioning. And little by little, we choose a kind of character that we feel we can play in life. And it feels somewhat real as we're building it, and people are handing us like Lego bricks of who they think we should be, until one day we realize we've actually built this story of who we are from the outside in instead of from the inside out. And the way you know how much your false self runs your life, if someone's listening and they're wondering, do I have a false self? It's very easy. When any aspect of who you quote think you are is unplugged, like you're the achiever, but you don't achieve. You're the beautiful one, but not anymore, or not in this room. Or, right, you're the smart one, but here comes someone smarter. Notice how you feel inside energetically. Panicky, depleted, like someone is sucking the air out of the room. So what's happening is you're running out of your energy fix. How do you get your energy fix? By fulfilling the false self. In other words, the false self needs other people to believe it so you can feel good enough. When you're anchored in the true self, well, people can like you or not like you. You're okay. People can love you or not love you. You're okay. They can listen to your show or not listen to your show. You're okay. A little human moment of, oh, I hope they'd like it. But it doesn't strike you deeply. Alignment is never interrupted.
Yeah, it's like it doesn't rock your boat.
Doesn't rock your boat. You're internally oriented.
Yeah.
And you know that in every moment of your life, you are just a soul evolving.
Right.
This is one big learning journey. And you know, the external dynamics are there to teach us, to feed us, to inspire us, to challenge us, but they do not define us. That's what the false believes.
So what that boils down to basically is what I hear you saying is the false self cares too much what other people think, and the grounded true self doesn't give a shit what other people think. And you know that you're kind of like walking in your purpose, and you are content to be alone and to do what you want to do, and you don't need any approval from anybody else. Is that kind of like what you're saying too?
Yeah, no, let me quickly highlight something though. When we are grounded in the true self, the essence, we still are compassionate. We still consider what other people think, but it doesn't define us. It doesn't shape. We often have to go through a period where we feel like we don't give a shit what anyone thinks. If they don't like it, they can piss off. You know, we have often that transitional phase, and that's normal. And then eventually we settle in and we can find the balance. Like, no, I didn't really ask for opinion, but okay, what is it? And then you can consider and you move on by choice. I think it's the difference. Here's an interesting shift. Most people don't think of it this way, but this is really what it is. The false self lives, this is going to kind of surprise you maybe, as a victim. The true self, right, lives in sovereign self-centeredness, right? A healthy inner rootedness. Why do I call the false self a victim? Because it needs everything to go its way or it's not content. I'll be happy when this changes, when he changes, she changes, that changes. My boss
Mhm.
changes, the government changes, everything's external, and I'll be happier when. That's a life of giving somebody else your car keys and expecting you're going to end
Mhm.
up where you want to go.
Mhm.
The inner self, the essence driven life is a life of choice, ownership, accountability.
Mhm.
I think it's more fun too.
I love that. Okay, I have one more quick question
Yeah,
about
it's okay.
spirituality. Why
Yeah.
do so many people separate spirituality from their everyday life and
Mm.
relationships? It's like two separate things.
I think there's two things that immediately come to mind, and one has to do with the
Mm,
religion has evolved in our modern world, where it's become a separate thing you do once a week. And quite literally, there are those that are religious but not spiritual. There are those that are religious and spiritual. So when you're religious and spiritual, you carry your religious values or the values uplifted by your community or tradition throughout the week. It is a part of your daily life. We've compartmentalized. That's one thing. I think the other thing, though, that's so significant is that I would say that we have diminished human identity. We are not only no longer spiritual, but we're really not supposed to be that emotional.
mhm,
And unless we're healthy and appealing, we're not really supposed to draw a lot of attention to our physical.
mhm,
We are idea machines walking around, right? We're a highly, highly intellectual culture.
mhm,
Um, with a kind of superficial, it sounds so awful to end on this note, with a sort of superficial materialism riding underneath it. And the problem is that in that culture,
mhm,
who's asking about your spirituality? Who asks about that at a party? Who
mhm,
asks about that over coffee? Who asks about that in a job interview? It's like we were talking about the way men have been conditioned to disconnect from emotions, to not own or integrate their emotional life. We are
mhm,
all being subtly given cues that you are not a spiritual being on a human journey. Oh, no, no, no. You
mhm,
are a profile that we can commoditize, right? You are ideas, you are output. So
mhm,
there's no chance. There's no chance. But we can claim that rediscovery and awakening of our
mhm,
spiritual life personally. And as you said, I think if you're a growing person, it's going to find you. It's if you have a strong energy in
mhm,
your life, incongruence will strip you bare. And from that diminishment, from that brokenness comes a deeper listening. And
mhm.
suddenly our spiritual nature reveals itself. Life gets really interesting.
I think this is a great note to end on that when you said it'll find you. I think people need to just face the fact that you are a spiritual being built for relationship and connection ultimately, and to stop fighting the spiritual world and realm that is happening all around us every day, all the time, but we just can't see it with our naked eye. Like we can't see God, but we can see creation
Mhm.
and his hand upon everything. And
Mhm.
so I would say whoever's listening, just accept it. There's a deeper meaning, a bigger purpose to your life if you're not walking in it already or don't realize it, and to be open to the wild, magical
Mhm.
world that is happening all around you
Mhm.
that you might be in denial of.
Yeah. As an interesting practice to end on,
Mhm.
I'm going to just a little bit of a challenge. Instead of asking them to accept it, I'd say experiment with it for 1 week, for just 1 week. Imagine that everything is actually perfectly designed and everything seeks your freedom. The person that interrupts you, the loss, the disappointment, just for a week, just imagine what if everything was trying to teach you something? Everything was secretly an expression of the sacred. Would you rush from your door to the car, or would you stop, as we said earlier, to watch the clouds? Would you look for the signals And as they say, the signs and the wonders, because they're everywhere. But if all
Mm-hmm.
we do is go from our phone to our car,
Mm-hmm.
to a meeting, to our phone, to our car, to another screen, I know, it's going to be hard to find God there.
And so when people say, why would I do that? I think it's about slowing down because when you slow down, you're able to see more, right? You're able to see deeper. You're able to see
Yes.
more meaning
Yeah.
in your life. Tell
That's
people
it.
where they can find you.
Oh, yes. So my website is my name, Jonathan Ellerby, Ellerb. I don't do a ton of social media except for TikTok. I'm a TikToker. So you can look me up on TikTok. And my books are pretty much anywhere you can find books. But the thing I'm passionate about is this small group work for men in relationships. All the homework assignment, or half the homework assignments, are with your partners. Everything is about getting results, and it is about putting all the things you and I have talked about into real life practice. And
Mm-hmm.
it's such an honor to be a part of this work. Actually, it's
Mm-hmm.
amazing to see men wake up and for relationships to blossom when they've been struggling. So that's my big passion right now, and
I love
that's
that.
kind of it.
Yeah. I feel the same. Helping people get unstuck, just give them another perspective that they can live life on their terms in freedom, healed, whole. Thank you so much for your time.
All right. Well, thank you for having me.